At Third Space Charity, we support a mentally resilient community by offering accessible counseling care to young adults between the ages of 18 and 29. This is Mental Health Matters, where we discuss topics and services related to mental health and wellness in our community.
My next guest is clinical counselor Paige Mathison. Hi, Paige.
Hello, Karen.
It's so good to see you.
I'm stoked to be here.
So it's been a while since you were doing your practicum with Third Space Charity, and now you are a fully fledged registered clinical counselor.
Yep.
How's it going?
My business just hit a 1-year mark on March 1st, and it's another chapter counseling because my name is Paige, and I thought that would be hilarious. Because turn of page counseling was a little too obvious.
Oh. I think that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what is life like as a clinical counselor? Is it what you expected?
It's above and beyond what I expected, actually. I can't actually even describe the feeling and the sensation I have when I connect with a person on like just such a deep level. And I know a lot of people have fears of going to therapy and wanting to make sure that they connect with their therapist. That's always the goal, that I create a safe enough space for them to feel like they can just truly open up and be themselves just as authentically as they possibly can. And yeah, there's no words that describe the feeling of that.
What has been the most challenging in it that maybe you didn't foresee about the work?
Hustling for clients, actually, because although we are always acknowledging how much we need to like work on our mental health and like trying to figure out different ways to improve ourselves, it's actually incredibly daunting to go and try and find someone who's a good match for you, because 80% of patient outcomes or client outcomes are from having a good therapeutic relationship. When you Google a counselor, it'll just pop up like this massive list of humans. And that's intimidating. But then once I started getting my name out there more, then more people started coming, and it's been beautiful.
Wonderful. You have a particularly interesting background to my view, and I'm sure to other people's too. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, I have been a psychiatric nurse since 2009. I still pick up at the hospital some shifts on occasion. And I'm also a stand-up comedian. So I've got like this really unique set of skills that I bring to the table of both therapy and just like connecting with people.
What is it that made you want to become a clinical counselor? Again, given you were already working as a psychiatric nurse, you had a career, it was there.
Yeah, there's so many limitations in nursing because of just how many patients we're taking care of at one time. The system gets to dictate how many staff members are on at a time. And there just wasn't enough of that support that I anticipated or expected from the healthcare system for nurses. And I had already pre-pandemic decided I was going to be switching roles. And it was funny, I was sitting there when I was in a deep state of burnout, and I thought to myself, what do I love still about being a nurse? Like, what is it about this career that I enjoy? And it was connecting with my colleagues and being able to connect with patients on a really deep level. So I was working on night shifts and asking my colleagues about their lives. And I was like, I want to help helpers. I want to help the people who never ask for help, that they're the people who are just a little bit harder to tap into. And that's been an awesome journey.
What was it like for you doing your master's degree and everything that comes along with that while still working on the front lines of healthcare during a global pandemic? Like, you kind of took on a lot at one time.
Oh, it was super. I'm just kidding. I actually did have a chunk of time off in 2020, which was a blessing in disguise. But even coming back after that time away and just recognizing how low the morale was, because so many of my colleagues had the shifting, twisting, turning, never knowing, like first they were lining up outside the hospital to get to work, and then they were checking. And it really just breeds a sense of confusion, fear. Where are we going to get pulled? Are we going to turn our psych unit into a COVID ward? Like no one knew. So the morale just went down so much, and it's still been continually shifting because we're losing so many nurses.
Mm-hmm. And you were going to school.
And I was going to school, and I was doing my master's. Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
In looking back at what that time was like for frontline healthcare workers, and still in that context where you're taking some shifts, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing healthcare workers in this system as we come out on the other side, hopefully, of the pandemic?
For many years, we have been very promoting of stoicism in the healthcare profession. And I think we're misunderstanding what stoicism truly is. Being stoic in a moment of crisis is important, where we can keep ourselves together, bring the confidence to the clients, the patients, and be able to bring them into a safer space. But we also need to address, like, how do we release that from ourselves afterwards? And we're not being taught that enough. There's a few courses here and there, but this is something I really want to bring out into the healthcare world and speak to healthcare professionals about, because we need to really recognize our humanness in all of this, because we've not been doing it nearly enough.
Right. And during COVID, we spoke a lot about our healthcare heroes and that they're superheroes. And they are, but they're real humans who are dealing with the same stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you plan to do that, to support those folks doing that important work that you are still doing now as a mental health care professional? What do you envision?
Yeah, I already have started a TikTok page and an Instagram page called Therapy for Nurses. And although I'm not providing therapy to the staff, it's very much so just trying to get the word out of, like, self-compassion, anxiety management, and just building positive relationships among each other, because the rumor of nurses eat their young is true and still is happening today, if not worse than it was before. And so we need to realize the importance of supporting one another so we have longevity in their career, because we aren't healthcare heroes. We're heroic humans. We are human beings doing heroic things. And that's what I really want us to recognize, that we don't have to be robotic. We don't have to be perfect. Totally. Being human is not perfect.
No. And speaking of not being robotic, you being a stand-up comedian are the opposite of robotic.
Yeah.
I mean, that expression that laughter is the best medicine, I feel like you kind of live and breathe that every day. Talk about that. And you've spoken a little to me about the notion of, like, laughter therapy. What's that all about?
Oh, yeah. I did a diploma in laughter therapy, and it was just like a cheap course online that I did because I just wanted to know more about it. There needs to be so much more research and evidence for it. But at the end of the day, if we laugh about something or make a joke about something, we're literally doing a reframe. We are doing a perspective shift of something that's dark and twisty or upsetting, and giving ourselves a moment to breathe. Because if you have, like, a full body laugh, we're processing something here, like the knee slapper jokes or those involuntary claps. Our body is responding to something that's really, really cool. And I love that about laughter.
And so how do you take that and what you're able to do and provide when you're performing, say, at a comedy club or at an event, and bring that into a serious mental health care session? How do you integrate those?
That's actually a really good question, because, like, I've learned how to read my audience, I guess, because I've been doing comedy since 2016. But I find that some of the most therapeutic moments I've ever had with patients or clients is when we are, like, cry laughing in a session. Even if the topic at hand is incredibly traumatic, it's good for them for a release. It's good for me as the clinician who's listening and hearing these stories, but also just having an acknowledgement of, like, oh my God, life sucks sometimes. But there's, like, some acceptance in there too of, like, this is messed up, but look at us here laughing and surviving and just moving on to the next thing.
Right. I think people say that, right? Well, if you can laugh about it, then I guess you're going to make it somehow.
Yeah. And you just don't want to shove it down and, like, laugh to just completely avoid and pretend that it's not a thing. Because we can do that. Lots of times we laugh to deflect and just pretend and, like, shove it away. But laughing and then acknowledging, that's the difference, is being like, okay, so I laughed about this. Why? And this is actually something that's hard for me. So maybe I do need to talk further and do a deeper dive.
So what do you think are some of the special skills that you mentioned, that you have these special skills, but what are they? What is it that being a comedian and understanding the value of laughter and humor brings to your work as a mental health care professional?
I think when we think about therapy, we think about the sadness of it and the difficulties and the tragedy. We don't think about the celebrations that we get to have with our clients. We are so often so in our own world and in our own pain. If I'm able to bring any form of lightheartedness and bring comfort into a space, because humor also kind of not deprofessionalizes me, but puts us on a bit more of the same playing field. Because humor, if you laugh at a joke that I do or vice versa, we've connected as human beings because we both found something funny. And so I think you can just bring so much lightheartedness, especially when I do wellness speaking. Because when I do that, I'm also putting it in a more lighthearted way than someone else might.
Totally. What's one thing that you do when it comes to looking after yourself? I mean, you have a role as a psychiatric nurse and as a mental health care professional and as a comedian. It's all about looking after others. So what do you do to care for Paige?
Well, I'm a people pleaser in recovery.
I can relate to that.
So I think that's going to be an ongoing journey throughout my entire life. And I find that the most important pieces for me is to find fun in my life, have things to look forward to. My practice, I'm very positive psychology based, which basically means adding more good things and pieces into your world so that the negative pieces or the upsetting pieces just don't feel so as impactful or heavy. We need a lighthearted side. We forget how to play as adults. We just kind of think, oh, you just go on your vacation once a year and you drink every weekend. And that's it. That's adulting and that's fun. And I don't think that's true at all. There's so much more that we can be doing and tapping into our younger selves, tapping in more into laughter, curiosity, learning what our strengths are and learning the things that we loved in the past can really help propel us forward and live a way more fulfilling and purposeful life.
Okay, so why do you think the world needs more people like you and therapists like you?
Well, it's so funny because I talk with so many clients who say that they struggle to connect with a therapist or whatever. And I know the therapists as human beings because when I meet with them, I get to hear their human side of their passion. And for me, I think mine really rings through and I want other people's personalities to ring through too, because I think without that, people are fearful of us. So more people who show their passion, I think would really, really engage more people to get care.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for joining us. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about your services as a therapist or as a speaker, how do they reach you?
Yeah, you can find me at anotherchapter.ca or you can find me on Instagram at anotherchapter.ca, same with TikTok, or if you're a healthcare professional and want to know more, Therapy for Nurses.
Okay, thanks so much. And that is Mental Health Matters. My guest now is CJ Leblanc from Foundry. Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me today.
So let's start with the big question. What is Foundry for those who've never heard of it?
Okay, so Foundry is a clinic that has a variety of services for young people 12 to 24. We're across the province right now, so there's 14 of them in the province. Well, 13, and the 14th one is a bit of a pop-up one. So the services we offer at Foundry, a wide range of things from we have doctors for physical care, doctors and nurse practitioners. We have a family navigator and family peer support to help out families who are really struggling to take care of someone who is going through a time with mental health or addiction. We have social services there, including youth navigators who help young people to navigate around their barriers, doing system navigation. How do I apply for income assistance? All those things that are difficult and made even more challenging when you're going through a rough time. Certainly mental health and addiction is one of the primary things that we have there. Between us and Interior Health, who's our main partner at Foundry, we see clients for mental health on a walk-in basis. Interior Health has the ability to see clients on a longer term as well. And addictions medicine is a big thing for us there as well. Peer support is another area that we do work in. We have youth peer support, so young people who have that lived experience and can approach a young person in a non-clinical way. Be an example of someone who has been through it and is still going through it. And the same thing for family peer support. So we have, a family peer support person who has faced those struggles that many of our caregivers are coming in for support for us for. And one of the other things that we do is also in employment services. We have a program called Foundry Works. It works with young people. We have an exciting new project coming up in May called Renew that we're looking for some young people to sign up with us for.
Okay, well, you said it, so now you have to tell me about it. What's Renew?
So Renew is it's a project that is being sponsored by I believe Fortis, And it's a 4-week program that trains young people in acquiring skills to be in the trades, to do some construction work. There's a lot of value adds to it for the young people, including certificates like Fall Assist and WIMIS, Industrial First Aid level 1. They get, a schwack of tools. I think it's $500 or $600 worth of tools, which, to be honest, I'm kind of a tool guy, so I kind of want to join. And a laptop as well. It's a big thing and a big opportunity, and they'll also be attached to one of our employment specialists who help them to find a job afterwards as well with those new skills.
Why has this been identified as a need to have a program like this?
I think for a lot of people, there's been a bit of a lull within the employment sector since the pandemic, but it's also helping young people to upskill, to get into the market, to get jobs that pay a little bit more, to be able to afford to live in this area as well. We know the cost of living is astronomical.
For sure. Talk to me a bit about your mental health services. So if I am a 14, 15-year-old and I walk in the door at Foundry because I need some mental health care support, what does that look like for me?
Totally. So one of the most important things for us at Foundry is really validating the people when they cross that threshold of the door, because we know that is one of the most difficult times, that help seeking, being unsure, being uncertain of what lies behind there, what kind of judgments people might have, or the sort of the negative internal voices that they are experiencing, that self-talk. So it's having a peer support person that can welcome them into the space, tell them about the programs, help them to sign up. Usually, a new person to the clinic might go through walk-in counseling. Walk-in counseling is set up for young people that, once again, 12 to 24, that, might have something that they want to get off their chest, they want to talk about, and it's there for them to do that. So no appointments are required. It's free of charge. We also have that service for plus 25 people as well, and they can call us. We have adult virtual counseling too.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
How have you seen the need for your services change, if at all, sort of during and post-pandemic?
Definitely. I mean, I think post-pandemic, it's affected all of us. There's not a person that I know that it hasn't affected in some shape or form. But definitely we can say that there's been an increased amount of young people that are experiencing anxiety and depression. And I can't say exactly, but it might have been exacerbated certainly by the pandemic.
How do people find out about or access your services? Do you need a referral for any of them, or all of them walk in?
So there are some services that a referral is required for, like psychiatry. That needs to come from a doctor, and there's a special route for that. We don't have any walk-in psychiatry, unfortunately. But majority of our services are call and arrange an appointment, or walk in and someone can see you.
It sounds very one-stop shop. Was that part of the rationale behind creating places like Foundry?
Well, I mean, to be honest, that was a bit of when we first started off, I think it was advertised as a one-stop shop. It's a bit unfortunate that way. I don't think there's any place that could be a one-stop shop, nor would you want to be. That would be that you have services for everyone and every issue. And I just don't think that's possible. But what we're aimed at is transforming the way that young people receive care. Being able to come in and speak with someone, and then they can help you to connect to the other services, potentially in-house or out in the community. The idea is being able to tell your story once, and then that worker can seek out the help you need and help you to share your story.
How much of it is about real human connection?
I would say most of it is about real human connection. One of the things that we strive for is treating people as humans, not as the issues that they're experiencing. And that's a really big thing.
On that topic, what is one thing you wish more members of the public understood in terms of dealing with folks who are experiencing homelessness or drug use or mental health issues?
That they are all people as well, that they weren't born into their circumstances, they weren't born into the things that they're experiencing. They want to do well. Everybody wants to do well. They just need the opportunity to do it. And support.
What is it you love most about doing this work? You've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, I think I'm getting into my 18th year, and rounding up my 11th year at CMHA. I love opening up the door to possibility, right? Whether it's working with a young person in my past, opening up their eyes to things, or seeing them making some slight changes, or working with staff and the same, and sharing some of my experience, and some of my long-winded stories of experience with them.
What about challenges? What do you find the most challenging in this sort of work?
Well, I mean, you are no stranger to the biggest challenge in nonprofit world is funding. Certainly, I mean, we receive about half of our funding from our central body, Foundry Central Office, but we have to fundraise, about another $800,000 a year just to keep the lights and the doors open at Foundry. So that's always a challenge. It's always a process of going out and finding the right grant, or connecting with the right donor or philanthropist. It's always an ongoing challenge for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a particular success story or just human story that brings you back to the focus of the work and motivates you kind of on a regular basis?
And I talked earlier about being treated as human. That was actually based on feedback that we had from one of our young clients, probably back in the fall, where she said that was one of the biggest points for her, is that we actually treated her like a human first and not like her problem. That's something that's really stuck and been ingrained in my brain. That is the feedback that I will always look for. It makes me the happiest, that we validate someone as a person, and that we walk alongside them to help them out.
Mm-hmm.
And that young person was certainly no stranger to many of our services. I think she first came on board with us on Foundry Mobile, which is our mobile foundry that goes between Lake Country and West Kelowna and West Bank.
How many folks do you serve each year? You're running a lot of programs and you have the mobile service. How many do you serve each year?
So we see about 1,200 unique youth per year, which equates out to about 6,500 visits. A young person may come to us for one service, but we soon discover that, they need to see a doctor about a certain issue, or because their mental health isn't well right now, maybe they need help in finding some finances for the rent. So a vast majority of our clients don't come in with just one issue. They present one issue, and then as we get to know them better, it's revealed they need more support in other areas as well.
How good or bad of a job do you think our system has or is doing in terms of that intersectionality?
Good question. I think there's always room for improvement, always, and that's where the spirit of Foundry kind of comes in, and helping to pull together some of those services. Certainly, I mean, at a community level right now for mental health, the service providers are coming together to look at how can we do this better. So there's always room to improve.
Uh-huh. Talk to me a little about the whole peer support aspect.
Sure.
It's becoming increasingly popular, particularly in social justice and working with folks experiencing addiction and homelessness and mental health. How do people become peer support workers with you, and what does it look like?
Sure. So, I mean, a peer support worker is somebody who can offer non-clinical support, like I said, someone who can listen, who can help them to work on maybe goals that they have, where they're needing that support. So to become a peer support worker at Foundry and with CMHA Kelowna, It's just being able to have some of that lived experience. And the lived experience can be various. It's not just mental health. It's not just homelessness. It's not just addiction. It can be, certain backgrounds where you're from, your experience in life. It can be many things.
Right. Tell me about your own self-care. We talk about self-care, especially in this world, and it is challenging work. So what things do you do to look after yourself in doing this challenging work that helps other people?
Totally. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that wholeheartedly, especially in this work. Your self-care has to really be on point. And when it's not, it starts to show up. For myself, I like to start out the mornings by going to the gym. I like to lift weights. That's kind of my thing. It's about the only time of the day where my mind is absolutely quiet. I'm not thinking about any meetings or anything that I have going on at home. It's just I'm present and in that space. My family and friends are huge parts of my self-care. I'm very close with my family. As a matter of fact, there's 3 of us that live in the same neighborhood, not by design, just by happenstance. But yeah, I mean, self-care is such a huge part for all of us. And when those things that we do to maintain our wellness start to disappear, that's a warning sign unto itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for talking to me about your self-care and your story, and also about Foundry. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me today.
And that is Mental Health Matters.